Well, hello, everybody, and we're back again. You know, to, now we're going to talk about Lori Vallow's trial. Not that I like to say that name. I don't know about you guys, but the name's wearing thin on me lately. If you've been following the trial, you know exactly why. Last week, it just got to be a bit too much. I was a little under the weather. The last thing I wanted to do was sit here and talk about Lori Vallow. So we canceled. We delayed it to today, and we're going to cover everything that happened last week. There was a break in the trial. We want to put good thoughts out for Lindsay Blake's family. There was a death in the family, and they needed some time. They conferred with Judge Boyce, and they rescheduled a bunch of things. There were some early dismissals, and there was quite a few days of no trial, which so that things could be taken care of, and that's kind of good. Um, Basically, I don't know about you guys, but I feel like this trial is moving along quite nicely in regards to how the prosecution is laying out a absolutely no doubt about it kind of thing. Um, Remember that in this case, it's not like the Storch case where she's actually admitted to doing what she did. In this case, Lori Vallow is acting like she had nothing to do with it. And basically, the way they're laying everything out, that's not exactly how it's playing out, is it? Although we don't have like fingerprints, okay, we've had some pretty distressing testimony. And let's just get right into it, okay? First, I want to say hi, Juju. I know you're gonna I hope to hear your opinions on this, because I got some strong opinions on the prosecution team and how they're laying this out. And I am curious how the rest of you are looking at it too, because as distasteful as this whole thing is, we none of us really want to sit here and talk about the fact that children were murdered. Of course we don't. But that is the horrible realization here. And that is the absolute part that makes it so difficult to deal with the shenanigans and stuff that goes on. I want everyone to get a fair trial. I believe in the law. Justice matters. You've got to do it the right way. If you do it the wrong way, regardless of your motivation that you want the right outcome, you still need to follow the rules to do it. I'm all for that. Really, I am. Because you can't give passes even to the good guys. Okay, because then the bad guys just take advantage of it. Like, I get that premise, and I'm sure most of you that follow true crime do also. As much as this is an emotional case, as bad as it is for us all emotionally to try to deal with what happened to those children, to watch the Woodcocks crying, the families, the desperations in the cause. This was one heck of a week, was it not? The phone calls alone, the emails, the testimonies, we're talking about personal people who were there, who had everyday interactions with Lori Vallow Daybell and Chad Daybell and Alex Cox. Okay? People that actually had interactions with them, were close to them on a daily basis, and we're hearing from them what it was really like. Okay? Mm. I'm telling you, I do hope, Liz, I hope so too. I hope it's going to be shorter than expected, because just watching Lori smile and talk with her attorneys pisses me off. Just the pictures that are coming through. I don't even see it because we got no cameras in there, because Judge Stephen Boyce decided that no camera, he did that. That's his choice. Okay. But we do get audio. Okay. And we do get the actual reporting of Nate Itten and who is the little lies lady, like, on Twitter. If you go to the Lori Vallow Reddit, normally when they put out the daily results of the witnesses and this and that, and while I'm actually doing the presentation today, each day I'm going to link you to that so you can go and see the actual details, okay? But I want you, if you use it or you promote it, please give them absolute credit. They're doing really great work pulling things together. What they're doing is pulling the work from the people who are in the courtroom, doing the Twitter feeds and doing the day-by-day feeds, and pulling it all together in one spot and then linking you to things. They're doing a really great job of organizing things, and they need to get the credit for that. I don't want to take credit away from, yes, Pretty Lies Alibi. That's it. Liz, thank you very much. Thank you for the assist there. I don't want to mess up her name, but between Nate Eaton and Pretty Lies Alibi, they've got this data. They've got like an ongoing feed through Twitter and through social medias of what's going on in the courtroom, and so they're pulling all of this information together, plus looking at reporting and pulling all of the links together. It is really, really good. Yup, Gigi McElvey. Yup, you've got it. And the really long name for Sonny, the really long name for Sonny out there, like that one, Sunu or Sonny, they're also doing great work on the Starch trial too. So there's two great Reddits out there that are actually believe in just putting it the right way and keeping the conversation going, giving everybody who loves true crime and the legal aspect a place to go to talk about it and everything, but keeping all the information very clean and very up to date. You can still talk about everything, but they don't actually get into all of the stuff that can't be documented and things like that. So I really appreciate it. It's been a great place to back up a lot of the stuff that you hear and say. Me, I got to see things 3 times before I even want to say I saw it. Well, there we go. Hey, Grace, good to see you. Hope you're doing okay. Well, all right, so let's get to it. We had already talked once. We did an update, and we talked about the first witnesses. Witness number 1 was Kay Woodcock. Okay, witness number 2 was Brandon, who was Melanie's husband at the time, who they really was part of the whole thing. Friends with Charles, really good friends with Lori and Charles, and then everything starts falling apart when Chad gets into the picture, and Melanie is getting very invested in the Latter-day Saints with Lori. And when we left all of that, basically we learned that Brandon was now like a person on the outs because he didn't kind of go with this whole thing with Chad and everything like that, although he was actually a believer. He had good faith and he was supporting Melanie and all, but for some reason he's dark now. And there's everybody's working against him. There was an attempt on his life. It was investigated. It is suspected that could have been Alex. Okay, Alex is no longer with us. There were no charges pressed. It was investigated. They did not bring that they think it was Alex into the chart. Brandon does say that he went to the police and reported it. But let's remember that the investigation into the missing Ty Lee and JJ was because of Brandon's shooting. Investigation started and curiosity started at that point. So that was a key pivot in this trial. In this whole investigation and everything coming forward. He was personal non gratis, okay? Let's see. He just, when it comes to it, he was like the catalyst for this actual trial actually happening. Hey, Crazy Cats, welcome. Yeah, I'm telling you, it's, that was eye-opening for me, looking at the relationship between Brandon and Melanie, the niece. Like, I always knew that there was something there, possibly that he was attacked because of all of this. And it did kind of lay out that way. But let's move on to after that. After that was a very upsetting day of trial. Probably one of the most upsetting days. And I'm not going to go into great detail. There is great detail out there. You can listen to the audios, okay? And if that is something that you are able to do, please do. But basically, Detective Hermosilla, okay, actually spoke about the discovery of the bodies on the property of Chad Daybell, talked about what had happened to those bodies, the conditions of the bodies of the children. It was quite an upsetting day of trial. It was very emotional. It was very long. It went a really long time, like into the next day. And Lori Daybell, through the morning testimony, said she looked very distraught for the very first time. And I'm going to use the artist. Also, I do believe that the court artist gets a lot of credit here. I will be listing them down below. As soon as I could get the last name spelling of them proper. I've seen it several different ways and I got to get it right. I want to put it in the description accurately. But on my display today, this is detective. This is the rendition of Detective Hermosillo from that day of trial. And I believe that's Rob Wood, the prosecutor for Ada County. I mean, actually, he's from Fremont County. I'm sorry. They're in Ada County, but it's the Fremont County prosecutors. Remember, there was that whole negotiation thing there. But the testimony was really long and hard. It was even difficult for him to recount the conditions of the bodies. Well, the reason that there are some things that I am going to mention, and that is in regards to the burning of Ty Lee's body, the condition. It was dismembered, it was burnt, it was in a very sad shape. It wasn't even a body anymore. There wasn't anything to present as far as photographs except for mounds of things. I'm sorry to be so graphic. The testimony was absolutely much worse. The evidence that was put in place was actually much worse. But that's the real deal. It was horrible. They also showed JJ's pictures of JJ's body bound in his pajamas, duct taped. Not good. Okay. This was very upsetting for everybody there. Everybody was having an emotional reaction. There was a lot of distress. There were notes taken by the jury. The jury looked completely uncomfortable based on reports. Thank you. Is it 2 N's or 1? Always grateful for listening. She says that the Boise court artist is Lisa Cheney. And I was looking for somebody put a Z and an N and another N in there on me. And that's what I'm trying to double check. Somebody was telling me it was spelled CHENNEZY, but I've only seen it that way and this way. And I'm trying to figure out which one is the right way. Yes, Liz Stewart, they did say that JJ was still recognizable. Actually, one of the most poignant moments that day in the court was when they showed the photograph and you could tell it was him. It was not good. Okay, thank you always. They could tell he was recognizable. He was wearing his little red pajamas. It was sad. It was everybody was upset. The day before when Brandon was talking about Ty Lee, you could see how close, and JJ, you could see he knew these children and how distressed everybody is about what happened. Everybody who testifies so far, even the officers, is a little, you could see Hermosillo, they were all affected by what they saw. Absolutely, it was not. These were shallow graves too. They weren't even very deep. The smell was horrible, okay? And the condition was something no one should have to go through. More anyway, because of this testimony, of all things, the one thing that really, really just put me over the edge and why I didn't talk about it last week was, I'm not feeling so great anyway. And then I see that Lori Vallow actually asked to speak to the judge out in the hallway, wanted to be excused from attending the rest of the testimony because she doesn't want to hear about the condition of her children. She doesn't want to hear about what happened to them, what caused those injuries, how it might have been done, and that she's being accused of it. Okay? I'm telling you, I'm saying, like, right now, not having, listen, that sent me over the edge. How do you guys feel about that? I'm telling you. How do you feel? I just sent me oh my goodness. I can't even talk about it. That took a lot of nerve. Okay. I realized her defense attorneys were actually arguing that, she's got fragile mental health to begin with. Let's take this into consideration, blah, blah, blah. Hey. Prosecution came back with, hey, this is Idaho. We've got Law 43, and it says that they should really be present, especially if they're going to be accused of this stuff. You just don't get to pick and choose what testimony you're going to show up for. You don't get to pick what day you come into court and what day you're not. You're going to either be excused for the whole thing or you're going to sit through it, even the uncomfortable parts. Okay. I think it was a ploy that she didn't want the jury to see her reaction, whether she had one or not. Maybe she didn't want to feel like bringing on the tears because she knew they would be fake. I don't know what it was, but she did look absolutely sad and distressed. And she tried, and then they said, nope, sorry, you do have to come back. We are not excusing you from trial. Yep, Boyce said, you are staying. If we have to listen to this, You have to listen to this. And I agree, right? Right, Liz? If we all have to listen to it, the jury has to listen to it, the prosecution has to present it, the defense has to defend you for it, then you shall, Lori Vallow, sit there and listen to it too. No, yeah, total ploy, right, Juju? And I'm glad it didn't work because I don't feel bad for her. No, no free passes. Exactly. And I'm glad you guys are on board with me with this because that really irked me something. And you know what? I was right there behind Boyce. I thought he might give in because he's been very sympathetic to Lori in regards to her mental health, in regards to no cameras and confidentiality agreements and this, that, and the other thing. But now that the trial has started, he's been going a little more not. And I'm very happy to see it. You either love or hate Stephen Boyce, at this point. People were very upset he didn't allow cameras. People are very upset about the amount of time he gave for mental health and the pushback, and also for dropping the death penalty in retaliation for some late filings on discovery, which I think is bullshit. But based on the evidence also, there is no conspiracy. As Lindsay Blake will say in her opening statements, and you heard, conspiracy to commit the murders is the same thing as murder. She didn't have to touch those bodies to be fully responsible for the deaths of those children. And I think that actually at this point of the trial, what are we day? We're day 11 in. Yesterday was day 11. The last one I'm reporting on today was 12, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. My math could be skewed. I'm not following the actual dates to days very, very good, but I do have the number of witnesses. As of yesterday, we had 11 witnesses to date. Okay. And there were more today, of course. As of yesterday, that was. Yep, T. King, I think she did it for sympathy. Liz, I think you're right. She may have some kind of mental illness or personality disorder combination. Must be hella diagnosis since she is not using it as an aid in her trial and doesn't want it exposed. Yeah. We know she's a little off. Okay. There was a lot of things we learned in the last couple of days that the prosecution did a good job of bringing out. Okay. And I'm right with you, Juju. I don't feel bad for it all at this point. I'm trying to. Her disrespect for the actual process is palpable. Her disrespect and disregard for people in general is evident in her dealings, as you will learn with the rest of what we're going to talk about. Oh, jeez, let me just. Okay, so this was Detective Hermosillo. I'm probably saying it. Hermosillo. This is Lori. This is the court showing Lori's distress, which I don't feel so bad for her at all. At all. As a matter of fact, I think these unflattering pictures are the ones that should be out there because they aged her like 20 years at least. And I was kind of happy to see it. Okay. What I wasn't happy to see was actually during the testimony of the detective, the way it affected Larry Woodcock in the Woodcocks. Lori's sister was there, several other, no, not Lori's sister, Charles's sister was there. Everybody's there supporting Kate. It is just the effects on everybody else. It's absolutely, absolutely horrible. I have to check about that. I did know at one point how many women and men were on the jury, but I'm going to research that for you, Juju. I will add it to the comment on the back of the video, or I'll message you. But that's a very good question. Yeah, that's right, T. King. No Botox and makeup in the clink, and she's looking a little hard these days, We all know that she's quite the actress. This is true. She's known for her gregarious personality and smile and winning people over. This is all been documented. Okay. So after the distressing day of testimony with that, there really wasn't much new that came out. Most of this has been documented before, like in the trial. It was just that part about Lori. that really pissed me off. The witness after that, I do not have a photograph of. So let me take this down for just right now. And then the detectives and all, I didn't really document all of the court reporters on that, just some more of the key witnesses. But let's just talk about Lieutenant Jared Wilmore. He very quickly, he's from Madison County Sheriff's Department. And what got put forth from them is some phone calls, okay? And I'm going to link to you in the chat a place to listen to this phone call between, and an article that I found very fascinating, by the way, in regards to Chad and Lori Daybell on the day the investigators discovered the remains of the children, okay? Jared Wilmore, he works on documentation of all of the calls that are going, like, and the surveillance of everything while Lori was arrested, while she was in jail. And remember, Lori was already being held when the bodies were found, okay? And so they were talking back and forth via that. So that has actually been documented, okay? There's also a video call that was put into evidence between Lori and her sister Summer. And that happened in June of 2020. And also some video visit by her son, Colby, okay, on August 3rd of 2020. And they show basically what the prosecution is going on showing here. The conversation between Lori and Chad was a little sketchy. He was like telling her to contact a lawyer. You should talk to them. He seemed a little quiet about it. They really didn't have much admission there, but you could tell that they were being very careful back and forth and trying to do it. To me, it sounded like they were talking in a little bit of code, you know. Hey, Mousy, nice of you to join us. It's good to see you. Well, anyway, that article is pretty discovering, especially that they're talking, you know. And I have to say that, yeah, we're going to get to that, Liz. That was like so unsettling for me. So after they get that into evidence, and they're doing a good job of showing with the visits with Colby and the visits with the sister on how Lori is still saying she doesn't know where anybody is, but that actually she said she knew at one time where these kids were. Is it that she knew that they were dead? Okay, because she kept telling everybody in the family that she knew where they were and they were fine. Okay. All right. After that, Lieutenant Joe Powell from Fremont County Sheriff's Department comes up, and in his testimony is going to bring to light more in regards to Tammy Daybell's death, okay, and also in regards to some photographs that they have from very early on of Chad and Lori together at a cafe a week or so after the death, holding hands while going through Hobby Lobby, things like that. I mean, remembering that she died on October 19th of 2019, okay? And that Charles Vallow had informed her 2 weeks prior that Chad Daybell and Lori were possibly having an affair. Lori had been accusing Charles of having an affair at the time. And no, actually Lori was the one, okay? And further testimony throughout the next 2 days is going to actually prove that. They're bringing up photos, and they admit all of this. There was surveillance going on. It was the shooting of Brandon that is making the investigation into people involved in the area. Tammy Daybell's actual cause of death was asphyxiation. Now, those of you that actually followed this case, like really followed it close, will remember that Chad Daybell's children actually said that in an interview a long time ago. But there was no actual reporting on it because they kept saying natural causes was the type of death. But the children actually, because they had to report, actually knew that it was asphyxiation, which could still be considered a natural death in some ways. If the heart stops and you don't breathe, it depends, okay, on how it happened. But now they're trying to say that it happened under more like homicidal situation. That it does not, because of her age and her health, there was an investigation into it, as there should be. No one just like that young, no health problems. You just It's possible to just die in your sleep like that, but not actually that probable. Possible, not probable. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to say there's no chance of it, but I don't know. That they're starting to link things together very well with the prosecution here, because they're putting in all of the evidence of her really strange behavior of trying to hide something, not telling anybody the truth. Basically, when I look at all the witnesses that they produced in the last week or so, they are building a case that Lori didn't tell anyone the truth of this going on. She kept denying that she was doing anything wrong, that she is pretty much a little bit delusional here about her participation in anything, or that anybody's actually going to fall for it. Because when you put all of these people in the same room, it becomes very evident who the manipulator and the conspirator is. And that is the case, I believe, that the prosecution is building quite strongly. Okay. Yeah, Liz, the jury has got to be hearing some absolutely terrible stuff. There is absolutely so much against her right now. She's acting all innocent, like, trying to, the defense is actually trying to say she was a good mother, and like, somebody else did something to these kids and she's not responsible for it. And actually everything is falling out that like she is the center. She is the she is what is all, like, what do you call that? The pin that all the cogs are spinning around. Okay. She is that center element that is connecting everything together, and beyond that, the prosecution is doing a damn good job as saying that every obstacle to Lori and Chad having a life together and going off into Latter-day Saints, author heaven, or whatever it is, going off into the hills, famous for their beliefs, the only two that know what's going on, they're going to fix the world. Yeah. Every obstacle to the two of them being together, alone in that bubble, are gone. Just look at it. Charles Vallow, gone. Tammy Daybell, gone. The children that we need to take care of, the remnants of our relationships. Remember, Chad Daybell's children are grown. Well, Lori's weren't, and Lori's are gone. Colby's still alive because he was grown, and he moved away. Alex Cox, the one who helped with everything, the one who actually had the relationship with both Lori and Chad that could do them in, gone. Everyone who stood as an obstacle to Lori and Chad being together in bliss somewhere else is gone. That alone would send me spinning as a prosecutor. I would just be connecting the dots, and this is what they're doing. This is exactly what they're doing. I'll do T. King, like, just thinking to be a juror on this charge. Liz, T. King, I agree with you. Just actually going through Detective Hermosillo's, actually his testimony of how they discovered everything, absolutely horrific. Okay, but it doesn't end there. It just keeps going. Okay. Right. This jury did not know much. Because it was a different county, they were quite pleased at how fast they could sit the jury, because they didn't even know what was going on. Even though it's a national case, a lot of people were like, they weren't paying attention to it. But to have all of that thrown at you, yes. And I keep thinking back to the Storch case and how every day Judge Newman asks the jury, everybody, if they're okay. Based on what they had to see and hear, like, are you okay? Do you need a break? Even the witnesses, and Judge Boyce may be having the same thing with some of the horrific things that happened that day. I mean, just like everybody, it was good that I actually think, not because of what happened, Lizzie Blake's family, I really feel bad that something happened, but having a little bit of break after that was probably like a good idea. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the answer is no, Juju. How could they be, right? Yeah, how could they be? Yeah. I know. It's just, yeah. I definitely am going to feel it. Well, here afterwards. All right. Moving on from that, they're documenting that they're having, they've got photos, evidence that there's something going on between Chad and Lori. They're kind of piecing things together. We have the shooting of Brandon. We have the death of Charles Vallow, which we'll go into more detail shortly. We also have the death of Tammy Daybell, Chad's wife. Okay. And now we're going to move on to a friend of Lori's who starts to testify after. Okay. This is Melanie Gibb takes a stand. Okay. And Melanie had a lot to say about procedure, about daily things that they did together. There were questions put forward in mm, just as a good friend, of hers, you know, mm, she could talk about how the ladies got together and how this obsession with, oh, here comes the word. Are you ready? Her obsession with that terminology of people turning into zombies. Um, when they got too dark, she explains to the court through the prosecution's questions and answers in regards to Lori and Chad's belief about light people and dark people. And mysteriously enough, all the people are dead. They were kind of on the dark side. And it was coming out in this testimony that Lori actually believes they're being cleared, released, that they're saving them somehow from themselves by releasing an evil spirit from their body. Mhm. And things happen. Mhm. You know, she also testified that the last month or so, the last month to weeks that she had any she could be around Lori and Tylee, that the relationship was strained. That Tylee seemed upset and frustrated with Lori most of the time. Remember, Tylee was getting older and she understands things. Um, there was some strain going on there, you know. She said that Lori did seem affectionate towards JJ, and she would sing to me in bed. But she didn't seem very focused on him, although JJ needed a lot of attention. Remember, JJ was a special needs child. And this is why Lori and Charles were helping Kay Woodcock by adopting him, because it was much and they had more time, the ability, they were younger, they had the opportunity. Okay. Um, she talked a lot about the personal relationships with Lori and the kids and Lori with other people, and also about the start of this craziness that started with their beliefs. And I say crazy. She didn't testify to it as crazy because remember, Melanie Gibb actually supported it. She was with it. She was part of it. She was part of those other ladies that would get together and do the castings and do the prayers and things to try to help others. But, you know, we'll remember from Brandon's testimony from day one that he said he was not welcome to those women's meetings. When his wife, the niece Melanie, uh, they weren't invited. She was getting closer and closer to Lori in her beliefs and was excluding Brandon, her husband, from that process and learning. Okay. Um, She testified that how Chad and Lori were very friendly with each other, and that from the obvious meeting when they got together at that first conference in Utah, that there was obviously an attraction there. She was very interested in Chad, you know, like someone we would meet that you're attracted to. She was flattered with him, and she was often really flirty like. Okay, this is from Melanie, her good friend, watching the relationship develop in the beginning, said from the start it was like on. Okay. um Anyway, she testified that Chad had spoken to Lori that they had already been married in what they call these life events, these life changing things when you come back and you go, well, they called them probations. They had very strange words for things, and I'm going to mess it up. Okay. He was married. She was married. They are flirting like crazy. And he's encouraging her by telling her that, oh, we've been married before in multiple probations. That's why we were attracted to each other. Duh. Oh, she gets books. She starts reading about him. She becomes obsessed. There is a mutual attraction going on here. He is feeding into it. Absolutely. He knows he's married. He knows she's married. Okay. They know they're married. Yeah, right, Juju. Okay, Chad, you go, right? Yeah, that is so like saintly of him, isn't it? Anyway, they talked about the meetings and her understandings, basically a lot of about the daily beliefs and how the beliefs were starting to grow. And then she started talking about how they kept in touch, they just, Chad actually came to Arizona for another event, about 2 or 3 weeks after they met. And that she held a meeting at her house after that one. And she doesn't remember if Chad actually showed up, but Lori did hold a meeting for everyone that attended the conference for that meeting, that event that Chad had, everyone that she knew, because they were holding these meetings together religiously about the beliefs. But they're not sure if Chad was there, but I can't even imagine. Listen, Chad started staying at Lori's house if Charles was out of town, according to Melanie, on one time that he was there in Arizona, and Chad actually stayed over for a weekend, and that was according to Melanie. And Lori was now telling Melanie all these things that Chad was telling her about the probations, which are her previous lives or something, that she had been married 4 or 5 times as other characters, in Chad too, that they had been married together multiple times as different characters in their probations. Okay. Kind of trying to justify what they're doing wrong, I guess. I don't know. The relationship of multiple lives being reunited is something that saying, something that kept repeating. Lori also had told Melanie that Chad and her were married in a Latter-day Saints temple together, and they were sealed together by Moroni, who is this high spirit, and Jesus Christ, and that their relationship of multiple lives was reunited together since they had met in this life now, and that it was as it should be. She also claimed to be part of the 144,000 people who will be here during the return of Jesus Christ to earth, with this strong Latter-day Saints belief. Okay. Lori also had told Melanie, all of this is what Lori and Melanie talked about regularly as friends. Okay. Deep information into God's, how far Lori got into believing all of this, the belief system of Chad Daybell. Let's just call it that. He wrote the books. She read the books. He did the preaching in the sermon. He did the quiet talks with her. He said the key words. She is definitely smitten with everything this man is about. She believes it. She absolutely believes it. And Melanie's testimony proves it. Okay. Melanie says Lori went out of her way to teach her all about the light and dark scales and try to explain everything to her, that anybody who was dark is actually working for Satan. Okay. That they've been contracted. Yeah, Juju, I know he did, right? Yeah. And I don't think Chad believes it either. I think he's a con man. I think he's just a man looking to make money and steal wives. Well, that's my personal opinion. But anyway, they start talking about the light and dark thing, and they're trying to explain all of this. Okay. Lori starts talking negatively about Charles Vallow, that he's been taken over. Just all of a sudden in January 2019, Charles Vallow has been possessed by an evil spirit. Chad is the one. Melanie says Chad is the one who said this to Lori first. And it was the first time that Lori had heard that an evil spirit could take over a live person like that. Okay. At least that's what she's claiming. Okay. But either way, Chad has deemed that Charles is dark, and Lori is being told this, and Lori tells this to Melanie. Lori then starts talking about Charles having dreams of Charles being in an accident. Okay. And he wouldn't be coming back home when he was visiting. And that maybe JJ was visiting him at the time. And, you know, it was crazy because Charles never was in an accident when he was in Texas. JJ was with Charles in Texas at the time. They were traveling back together and nobody was in an accident. And so Lori was like, what are you talking about? I mean, not Lori, Melanie was like, kept questioning her, like, what are you talking about? Like, none of this stuff is actually happening that you're saying, you know? And Lori said, well, that was an attempt to save him, but Satan interfered in removing the darkness from Charles. There was just crazy stuff going on. They started to hold castings and prayers to try to protect themselves from the evil spirit that had possessed Charles, and to also encourage the spirit to come out and join with the power of God for everybody's benefit. Melanie claims that she was involved with this casting system, and this casting is like a very detailed process that they do. It's kind of like prayer circle in some other religions. That's the only thing I can equate it to. Zoluma Pastenis, who was Alex Cox's wife, was also part of that group and those castings that were done against Charles. And we're going to hear about that from her in a little bit. But at the time she first started with Melanie and Lori and the group that were doing the castings and trying to cast out these evil spirits from people's bodies, she was not married to him at the time. Lori claims that the evil spirit that possesses Charles' body is named Ned. It has a whole name and everything. But then, of course, once everything happened and they did the casting, they thought it worked, and then it didn't. Well, then they renamed the spirit Garrick, or Garrett, or something of that nature. I don't know. And then there was finally another spirit called Heblos. Apparently, every time they did the casting and they said it was successful and Charles was going to be okay, when they decided Charles wasn't again, apparently he got another spirit and they had to do it again and cast that one out, because it couldn't possibly be that he wasn't dark and there wasn't a spirit. And this is all bullshit, but I digress. Anyway, the testimony goes on. Melanie was a believer. She does believe that people can be evil or good. She does believe that in the spirit, okay. But she's starting to see that there's a little bit of bullshit going on here, and you can tell. Lori had told Melanie at one time that Charles, Brandon, and one of Lori's brothers, not Alex, and Lori's dad, and Ty Lee, and Kay, and JJ, all of these people were dark, and a whole bunch of other random people. But it seems like anybody that disagreed with Lori's wanting to just go off the la-la land with Chad Daybell, all of a sudden, all these people are dark. Anybody who had anything to say about her relationship with Chad Daybell was dark. Melanie said that she did testify that Tammy Daybell's name never really came up until like right before she died. She doesn't recall them doing castings on her, anything like that. She does, however, recall that starting in February of 2019, Ty Lee was listed as dark and very dark. And that in September of that year, Lori had told Melanie that JJ had become possessed. Okay. It's noted that during all of this testimony from Melanie, especially when they talk about the people who have passed in the comments, the juror is taking notes like crazy in regards to what kind of ties Lori to these deaths. Was Lori speaking negatively about these people, claiming that they were possessed, claiming that they were zombies, claiming they had evil spirits in them, not talking to them, not talking about them as her children, her husband, her father's wife, anything like that, anything. Okay. not her her niece's husband, like not talking to them with the fondness of relationship she had before. It's all negative now. Okay. Because remember, the prosecution's job is to show that although Lori Vallow did not lay hands on the children or wasn't proven that she laid hands on them, she is the conspirator as to why they are dead, why they're gone. And I think that they're doing a pretty good job laying all this out. They're actually getting to the nuts and bolts of what caused this whole thing, what caused this whole cog system of death and deceit, all in the name of belief. It's horrifying, absolutely horrifying. Um, Insanity is a word that I would put on it. Um, Important part of this testimony that I want to get to is that Melanie actually testified that the night before Charles Vallow died, Alex Cox stayed at Lori's house because Lori told Alex that Charles was going to try to kill her, and she knew it as a fact. She said that they had come to her. She'd been warned. Prior to Charles being killed, at that point, Chad and Lori are communicating multiple times a day, almost constantly. 2 or 3, she said that Lori had different cell phones, 2 or 3 of them, and one was just for Chad, okay, and that he called her quite a few times. She called him quite a few times a day. They were talking a lot, okay. After, Lori said that, no, Melanie had reported that Lori said that Charles, before he died, had been very argumentative. She knew he was going to kill her. Alex had to stay over there, you know. She also testified that at one point, Charles was very upset with her because actually Lori took his phone. She took his phone. She said they argued about it, and then he threatened her to with a baseball bat and all of this, but nobody else ever saw any of this, you know. Alex Alex testified that he had gone to get his gun. He had actually given an affidavit that he actually went to get his gun because Charles was argumentative with Lori. He was worried for Tylee and himself and everyone. Charles was threatening everybody, and he took a gun, and that Charles had lunged at him, and he shot him in self-defense. Okay. But contrary to that, we're going to hear other testimony. Lori had confessed to Melanie that her and Chad at this point, prior to Charles's death, was that they were meeting at hotels. Lori claimed they were never intimate. However, they were meeting at hotels, staying together. She says they were never intimate while Charles and Tammy were still alive. Lori said this was according to God's will because they had been married in multiple lives and had a mission together, and that the deaths were part of God's plan. During this testimony of Melanie, Lori was taking notes like crazy. Lori told Melanie that eventually everyone in her family would pass on. Lori told Melanie that she was having difficulty dealing with JJ, finding it difficult to take care of him every day, that his needs were too much, that keeping the evil and the dark at bay was getting to be a big deal. Lori had expressed to Melanie several times that she was going to ask Kay if she could keep him, you know. Melanie said she didn't really notice that JJ's behavior had changed. He was a typical 7-year-old. He was autistic, but everybody was aware of the behaviors he had because of it. She said he never really observed him doing any of the things that Lori said he was doing, like climbing on counters and being out of control, throwing fits. She never saw him do that. She only saw him one day upset, and Chad took him out of the view. He took him upstairs. When he came downstairs and asked and Melanie asked Chad why his neck was so red, he had responded that JJ had scratched his neck, that they had an altercation. I can't imagine what, but I mean, it was just, children have meltdowns, especially, autistic children, emotional, not able to express themselves. Well, Melanie reported it as odd. She hadn't seen anything like that before. She also said that the last time she saw JJ was when Alex was taking JJ upstairs, and that the last time she saw him was with Alex. She said she saw Alex take JJ upstairs on September 22nd. But she doesn't recall seeing JJ before she left on the morning of the 23rd. When Melanie asked Lori why she just didn't get a divorce from Charles if she wanted to go and be with Chad, why didn't they both just get divorces? She said it wasn't in God's plan because Chad would be penalized if he got a divorce. Chad would lose his exaltation or standing with God if he divorced Tammy Daybell. That statement alone makes the removal of Tammy Daybell from the picture a goal for Lori Vallow. The prosecution did a damn good job in my eyes of putting that out there. That everyone who is missing now and gone was an obstacle to Lori wanting to be with Chad Daybell, someone she admired above everyone else, believed he was exalted by God, believed they were married in multiple lives prior, believed they had a future together, believed that God was choosing her to be with Chad forever as one of the 144,000 that were going to be saved. That's a lot for me to take in. Melanie was wondering where Chad was. Remember, Melanie is the friend that Lori said had JJ, that JJ was safe with her. And then Melanie lied at first, and then she wouldn't lie anymore. And she told them, no, this is the truth. I didn't know what was going on, but now it's getting a little crazy. Well, JJ wasn't with her. There is also a recording of Melanie confronting Chad and Lori in regards to lying. Okay. And I'm going to give you a link to that one that you can play at your leisure. I don't want to get in any trouble with anybody for playing their stuff here, but anyway, it's very awkward with Melanie and Lori. They are looking at each other during this testimony, but they don't really, it doesn't look comfortable. It looks very awkward. It doesn't look pleasing at all. Okay. I would like to make note that John Pryor, Chad Daybell's attorney, was here for the whole thing. He was actually there for the whole thing. Okay. Boy, Melanie was, as Melanie was giving her testimony, Lori was taking lots of notes, talking to her attorneys back and forth. But then again, there really wasn't that much pushback from the defense. Although John Thomas did do the defense, he asked about how often Melanie had met with the prosecutors, when did she start, typical defense testimony to try to see if they were coerced into saying things. He asked if Melanie was as forgetful with the prosecutors as she was with them about specific dates and times, although she was very good about context. She really was. I forgot to push the button on here. Here is the phone call. I'm sorry. There it is. One of the key things was that during the testimony, Melanie was referring occasionally to her thoughts, which she had put together on paper, a 7-page document of everything she wanted to remember. She actually wrote it out. Okay. She created that with her own testimony of what she had given before, what she talked about. It was her personally. She had done this back in 2020. Okay. So Thomas then decides that because he didn't actually he makes the objection that the whole testimony that she just gave, all that damning information about Lori and her beliefs and her relationship with Chad and everything Melanie eyewitnessed about the way they got together, how they got together well before their spouses were gone, about the circumstances regarding Tylee's relationship and disappearance, JJ's, everything. He wants it stricken. He wants the court to strike the witness out. Okay? He wants it because he says that the prosecutor did not furnish statements from Gibb to the defense. But the argument from Lindsay Blake is this: every word that's in that 7-page document is submitted to the defense because every word is taken directly from her prior testimony, from her affidavits, and everything in discovery that was permitted. All of it. It's not changed. There's nothing additional added. It is prior testimony. But because it was in a different format, I guess John Thomas thought he was going to get away with that. Okay. Okay. And she says, you know what? There is no crime, okay, in meeting with witnesses. Both the state and the defense meet with witnesses on a regular basis. That's called witness prep. You're both allowed to do that. So Boyce gets a little upset and says, you actually want me to say that everything that they just heard, you want me to get rid of. And then Blake said, not Blake, but Thomas says, well, 2 days ago, I tried to bring up this objection and you shot me down. But Boyce says that after reviewing case law, John Thomas, your objection is unfounded and the motion to strike the testimony is denied. He literally called it an unfounded motion because Thomas is trying to throw it out there that the only reason I'm bringing it up is you didn't listen to me the first time. He let the witness go on for a day and a half and then tried to object again to get everything stricken because of this document that she created in 2020, which is all the same information from before. Okay. Anyway, he gets to continue on his questioning of his cross-examination. He asked about, the multiple lives probations, and asked, well, Melanie, did you contribute to all of this? And they get into the thing that, yes, Melanie had said that she, do you believe that you've been here before? She said, no. Well, Lori and Chad told me I'd been here before. She said she bought into it at times what Lori was saying because she's very convincing, but she didn't actually believe all of it all of the time. There was some actually crazy stuff. She doesn't actually believe about the Moroni in Jesus Christ sealing Chad and Lori in a temple. She says she never asked Lori to show her the place in the temple where they were married or anything because she never really thought anything of it. Okay. Thomas tries to say that, whenever she talks about casting and the circles and all, he brings up, well, that sounds like witchcraft. And Melanie says, no, it didn't feel like that. It felt like prayer circle. It felt like we were doing something good. She was actually a participant willingly in all of this, thinking she was doing very good. Whenever they talk about any of this, the jury is like going nuts. They are actually intrigued in a way and taking notes. But I can't even imagine. They're watching the two of them back and forth and just like, I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine what they're thinking. Okay. They go back on and forth because Thomas wants to talk about the first casting, who was there, what did they do, the whole thing. They're going into details of it. That's when they start talking about the zombies, okay? And Thomas brings up Melanie's relationship with Tylee and everything. They start talking about these other cohort and about it being an antichrist. They get really detailed into it. It's really only relevant to the case in regards to the fact that how deep Lori believed this. What Chad was selling, Lori was buying. And Lori was actually the one who was bringing it out to others, like her niece, Melanie, and Melanie Gibb, and those around her. Okay. Basically, it's just the separation of Lori from everybody else that was in her life at the time. If you either believed what Lori wanted or you were dark. Period. After Melanie's testimony, they bring in the seventh witness, which is Nathan Duncan. Okay. Now, this is a problem. There's a lot of contention between the defense and the prosecution about this witness. Okay. There are technical legal issues that come up because this witness is going to testify about Charles Vallow's death. And we must remember that Lori is also got another case going in conspiracy for Charles Vallow's death in Arizona. Okay. So there's some technical issues here because you can't bring in prior acts or misdeeds. When you're talking about this one, you can't talk about that one, right? Unless it actually adds to the motivation of the motivational mindset of what's going on here in this trial. And Judge Boyce seems to agree that Charles Vallow's death does play in here significantly. They do not get to mention that Lori's on charges for that anywhere else. And I can see why. They don't say it in front of the jury. We all know it out here, right? We all know it. Okay. But something else came forward on this. That Charles had one visible gunshot wound on the left side of his abdomen, and there wasn't really a lot of blood present. Okay. But the other thing is that he was shot twice. If it was self-defense, then why was the second bullet when he was laying down face first in the ground? That is why the defense protested loudly in regards to this testimony. They didn't want that known. Anyway, this detective, Duncan, was one of the investigators. Alex had given testimony at the time, Alex Cox, Lori's brother, that he shot Charles twice in the chest while he was standing. Duncan says there was only one bullet hole initially, and then next there was a 2.4 caliber shell. There was also a bullet next to his left shoulder, which was lying on the ground, which was odd. There was no indication Alex performed CPR, although Alex gave testimony to 911 and further on that he did. But based on the observations, and here we go, and everybody starts objecting. Anyway, they start objecting about the CPR. Blake asked him, have you ever been to a place where CPR was performed and you saw the difference in the body? And there's another objection, and the judge says, listen, no, she's laying foundation, so stop it. Anyway, Lindsay Blake for the prosecution asked Duncan if you would see more blood if CPR had been done. And Duncan testified yes, that the lack of blood would say that CPR was not done only in his observations as a detective finding a body in this way, shot with CPR done. That he has been exposed to all the bodies that way. He's not coming in as an expert witness. Okay. Duncan said that Charles would have been lying on the ground when the second shot was fired by Alex based on the entry and exit wounds on his body. So at that point, they considered the shooting a homicide based on the placement of the bullets. Not so much. If a bullet, if a shooting is done in self-defense, you can still deem it a homicide. And they did. They weren't sure for what, but they knew that Alex Cox shot Charles Vallow. Now it's just the reasoning and whether or not it was provoked or not. Well, anyway, after weeks and months after his death, they learned of all the information about Charles's dark spirit and the talk of Chad and Lori. Duncan looked on Charles' phone for any details about these things, about infidelity, accusations, all the distress with Lori, and investigation starts. Okay, there's a PowerPoint presentation they want to bring in, and the court actually stops because defense just has a fit that they know what is going to be in there, and they've seen the text and stuff like that. But to put it in a PowerPoint that they actually haven't seen the PowerPoint, they have all the information that's in the PowerPoint, but they haven't seen the PowerPoint, so they have a fit. Okay, well, they also found some sketchy stuff about Chad Daybell calling a mortuary about disposal of the body for burning and everything to get rid of the darkness of Charles Vallow. And I'll give you that clip that they presented in the evidence there. That one was pretty good too. It's just wild what these people believe. I can't tell you. Lori also had an iCloud. Okay, and one of the other really important parts of this testimony, okay, was the excerpt of the prayer and blessing that Chad put on Alex. And that's this link that you can check out later. Anyway, basically in this, the prosecution is laying out that Lori and Chad, that Alex is actually an instrument for Lori and Chad. He tells Alex that he's to be a missionary. He says that he's had previous creations. You can hear him just working him. It's actually, He praises Alex for saying, "You've assisted us in so many ways. You must protect Lori. You are her warrior champion." All kinds of stuff. All kinds of stuff. It is unbelievable. Anyway, I'm not going to go into great detail with that one. I do hope you check it out yourself. And at the end of that, okay, Lori was there, and you hear her say, the last thing that happens is that Chad blesses Alex with a strong protection against Satan and his followers, Lucifer, Cain, and anyone else who comes after. And you hear Lori at the end, join in, amen. They wanted Alex blessed, like he was on some kind of mission. Like he was on a mission. It was almost like they were sending him off, right? Anyway, the next day, on day 5, we get into Zulema. Okay, Zulema, and let me see if Pastenes, who eventually ends up marrying Alex. But as we said before, she joins into the prayer circles, the castings, the Latter-day Saints. She becomes it from the beginning. She's part of everything. They had submitted pictures of how she met Chad and Lori from the conventions, how everybody was getting together. They did a great job piecing all that together, her place in this. But basically, Zulema had a lot of inside information into the relationship of Alex and Lori in particular. And that Alex was very protective of Lori, that Alex would do anything that Lori asked, often would drop anything and do whatever Lori asked. That Alex was protected then again also of Lori and Chad. And that he felt he looked up to Chad. He did. He became a very big part of all of this in the belief. He really believed. Okay. They talked all about, again, more in regards to more in regards to the relationship of everybody involved, the falling apart of the relationship, and the bad blood, the negativity towards Charles Vallow. Okay, even a little bit about anyone who went against it. Brandon, you name it. Okay. Um. The one thing I want to say before Zuluma took the stand, when they did the cross back, when they did redirect again on Duncan, he also brought in all of the cell phone data of Charles Vallow and about the text messages that went back and forth. You know, about Lori being upset about not being the beneficiary on Charles' account. Remember, Charles has said he was going to make Kay Woodcock uh, the actual beneficiary for JJ. Lori was telling people that wasn't Charles doing all of this. It had to be Ned because Charles is possessed now with Ned. Okay. They found messages from Zaluma's phone and Lori's phone, back and forth. They talk about all of that evidence, a weird text exchanges between Lori, Chad, and Zulima. Okay. And then they're going to call Zuluma to the witness stand. And Zuluma says most of those chats back and forth were all about excising spirits, about getting rid of the darkness of people, about doing the castings and how serious and how you needed the right people to do it and stuff like that. They talk about the text messages when Lori spoke to Melanie in regards to perhaps there'll be an accident with Charles and JJ and they won't make it home. There's actually text messages that show Lori, Chad, and Zuluma talking back and forth how to exorcise out that demon and maybe they need a violent event like a car accident or something to put the body in danger to get the spirit to leave. They wanted to use their powers of godliness to cause Charles and JJ to wreck the truck that he was driving, and maybe he needed to die to release the spirit. That was really heartbreaking to hear, that people with such a strong belief in that they're on a mission from God or planning the demise of another person because they don't believe the same as they do. This disturbed me on a level I can't even tell you. But it does show that they will try to get rid of anyone that's in the way of their belief. Lori and Chad were going to be together no matter what. And they were going to be together in belief of this only thing that I can call is insanity. Okay, one thing of note is that Zulema is here, and I'm just going to keep saying Zulema, okay, because I'm going to mangle that last name like crazy. Well, she's there with her attorney because she's got a 1998 drug charge thing that's going on, and there's a prosecutor's agreement on there. She doesn't want to violate anything that's in there. She's got her attorney there to just guide her along, but it really doesn't have anything to do with this case. And the defense decided not to cross-examine her on it, bring it up, and make it a whole big thing because it really doesn't play. Judge Boyce dealt with it. Okay, he dealt with it before she even did the testimony, and he reaffirmed that the attorney can be there to witness everything that's going on because they may need it for other testimony or whatever, and there's no problem with them being there. He said if the attorney is there as her personal counsel in regards to matters in another state in Arizona, that should be okay to protect her. Her attorney was like Garrett Smith. But of note, her attorney also represented Melanie and Ian Pawlowski, okay, who are also part of this eventually down the line. Okay. All right. They talk about Lori being visited by angels. It's basically all even more detail about the belief system and all of this. They're going to show how they all met, everything. It's very long. It's very tedious, but it lays great groundwork in how strong this belief is and how everybody involved got into it. But most importantly, about her relationship with Alex and Alex's relationship. Alex isn't here because Alex is gone. So they can't bring Alex in to testify about any of this. And it's basically all about how involved Alex was with everything also. Okay. When Alex and Zuluma got together, they weren't together in the beginning, but when they did, okay, um, everyone was trying to convince Zuluma to move to Rexburg, where Lori was in Chadwell. Okay, um, but she didn't want to. Her family was in Arizona. There was a lot of pressure put on her to do that. Um, when Zuluma went to Rexburg to visit, she was actually asked by Chad to send him a text message asking him to come and speak at an event so he could get out of the house because Tammy was still alive. And Zuluma did it. She said he wanted an excuse to come and see Lori, and so she actually sent a text message. Well, she confirmed that Chad Daybell also was actively in this affair with Lori. They say they're not in an affair, but they obviously are actively while their spouses are alive, and confirms the connection, the strong, undeniable connection between the two. They were trying to convince her to move to Rexburg, okay, but she had a job and a family, and she didn't want to. And basically, Lori actually came out and said, "Don't worry about it, because my niece, Melanie Boudreau, Brandon's ex-wife, she's got enough money for all of them." Kind of alluding to the fact that she was helping take care of everybody, and she was, okay. Um, when Zuluma got there, and they got engaged in November 7th. Alex Cox and Zuluma got engaged on November 7th. And Zuluma testified that there was no JJ available and there was no Ty Lee available at that time. They were not in Rexburg. Okay. They were not there during her Idaho visit. And Alex claimed he did not know where Chad and Lori were, but they ended up getting photos from them that they were in Hawaii at a later date. She also testified that before Tammy died, Lori had told Zuluma that Tammy had been possessed by a demon. And Lori needed Zuluma's help casting the evil spirit out of her. And that demon was named Viola. Okay. There was a time when Tammy was shot at by a paintball incident or something. And that night, Lori and Zuluma were doing a casting. She said that she received some new information and they were going to be using the cosmos. And Lori kept telling Zuluma how awesome she was. They praised her a lot. They worked together. She had a belief that they could control these spirits. She also testified that after that casting, that Lori got a phone call that made her very, very angry. She was using words like, "oh, idiot, moron, and stupid," and she was just being really pissed off. She said, "Idiot can't do anything right by himself." Kind of, the prosecution was laying the foundation, at least what I believe here, from just talking about the death of Tammy Daybell, the attempted shooting of Tammy Daybell, and then Lori gets a call about somebody not doing something right and getting all pissed off immediately afterwards. Zuluma is practically alluding to the fact that perhaps it was Alex that was shooting after, but there has not been any charges and nobody actually comes out and says that. Although once Lori and Chad go their way and Alex is left there, the day before Alex died, he did say, "I do hope that they're not trying to make me the fall guy here." But Alex was dead the very next day of natural causes, as reported, a blood clot. But still, everybody who was in the way is gone. Zuluma believed partially most of this stuff. Actually, she's very involved, and she believes in all of this. Okay, Zuluma kept asking Alex where was Lori and Chad while they were gone. And this is when they were in Hawaii. He kept saying that he didn't know. Zuluma didn't know police were looking for JJ or Ty Lee until after Alex had died, and Alex passed away on December 12th of 2019. Zuluma recalls asking Alex if he had anything to do with Tammy's death, and he would never answer her. And she was pretty pushy about it, and she kept at him. And then he said that things were weird, and she kept asking, "Where are Lori and Chad? What is going on?" And eventually, Alex did say, "I think I'm being their fall guy." And when she asked fall guy for what? What have you done? He wouldn't answer, you know. But eventually, in this one aggravated conversation, she recalls him saying at the end, "Either I am a man of God or I am not." And he was dead the next day. Zuluma had a journal. And one of the things they brought into the past was that she had circled in limbo a place on a map. And she specified if a person dies, there is a 2-minute window where a demon can take over the body and inhabit it. This is part of what they believe as far as the casting out of spirits and stuff. The original spirit goes into limbo, waiting for the body to be placed to rest. Zuluma says that Alex believed this. Chad claimed it in Creations, and he claimed that it was true, and that Chad had been the Holy Ghost at one time. In this page, they used it, in this journal, they used it to show her rating scales of light and dark, everything that she was learning from Lori and Chad in regards to that scale and how it was practiced, or the casting procedures. Okay. They show that there's a scale of light and dark from 1 to 6. Okay. And Zuluma was a 4.2 light, and Lori was a 4.3 light. They talked more about demons possessing during those windows. And that the only thing that you can do to prevent an evil spirit from entering, binding a body, is to use fire. You can either bind the body or you use fire. And the prosecution is admitting to them photos into evidence from the Preparing a People conference that Zuluma attended, but Lori didn't. But when they talk about the binding and the fire, it is a direct reference to JJ's body found bound with duct tape, and Tylee's body was burned and dismembered beyond recognition. There was a conference that attended that Lori didn't attend, that Chad was at, that Zuluma did. And when Chad was asked by Zuluma why Lori wasn't there, Chad told her that Lori had to be protected, and the person who was going to serve her divorce papers wouldn't be able to find her. So apparently they didn't want Lori and Charles to be divorced. Okay. There was a lot of talk about what Chad had disclosed about everybody's gifts and, more of all of that. To me, that's all gobbledygook that we don't really need to go into, except for that it absolutely did support the belief that these people have in what they thought they were doing the right thing. Okay. When Zuluma talked about Alex being responsible for Charles' death, Alex actually thought he was protecting Lori. He thought he was doing the right thing. He actually said that Charles was dead and that he was a zombie and that he needed to be. Okay. Lori told Zuluma that JJ was going to have a very short life after that. And even Chad said that about JJ in August of 2019, because he was going to come right back as Colby Ryan's child. Chad was actually telling Lori that if JJ died, his spirit would come back as her older son's child. Alex told all this to Zuluma. So this is like not directly from Alex, and it's not actually what was being told to Zuluma. It was Alex that recanted this when he was talking about what Lori and Chad were telling him. When asked about Alex's role with Lori and Chad, one of the final questions for Zuluma was, Alex took his role seriously to protect Lori, and she said, absolutely, he did. Okay. On this day, talking about her brother, Lori in the courtroom is very, very, very chatty. Very much so. Back and forth, back and forth. Okay. I want to get to the last person to talk to. The cross-examination was just back and forth about what she knew or what she didn't know in regards to the practices that they did every day. Okay. Well, they're going to start the next day with back on the stand for cross-examination with John Thomas with Zaluma. I don't really think anything was actually there in support. It was just more detail. She goes into the fact that she really trusted these people. Chad said he had a veil and he could see to the other side. He said he was constantly being guided by angels. Lori said she had conversations with Jesus Christ. A lot of it was just, out there. She said she trusted them. It was very hard and she was confused. But in the end, she actually believed them. And she said she always got the answer from God that said, you will go and to Rexburg eventually, but not right now. That she didn't want to go and stay there. Okay. She didn't want to move there. All right. She felt like she also was in communication with God on a regular basis. So she used that strength in her belief and actually took in a lot of what they read. Okay. But a lot of it is pretty damaging because she is in conversations, remember, with Lori and Chad about doing castings and spells to try to affect the lives of others, the deaths of others, accidents. Hopefully there'll be an accident to free his spirit. These are text messages that were revealed. All right. The ninth witness, okay, on this day is Colby Ryan. All right. I forgot to change your picture for you, and I do apologize because my prompter got stuck. This is a picture of Zaluma, okay, but our ninth witness is Colby Ryan, the older son of Lori. Now, there's a heartbreaking and absolutely heartbreaking voicemail conversation with Colby Ryan and Lori, where he confronts his mother into, how could you be this person who told me my siblings were fine and they're not. And they're not. How could you be that person? He was so emotional and strained on the stand. I mean, this is one that really got to me. Okay. They show him photos of Ty Lee and he breaks down. He's nervous. He's holding his emotion. He said the day that he died, that Charles died, he went to the house and Ty Lee greeted him. And that Alex was sitting on the couch watching TV, bandage on his hand. And he said that he had shot Alex because Charles hit him with a bat. So he shot him. He said that Lori was very calm that night. Yes, everyone should listen to that. It's heartbreaking. Like, you kind of understand the devastation that everybody around Lori is feeling in regards to all of this, everything that's going on. It's like Chad Daybell walked into her life and everything blew up. A couple of weeks, he testified to the fact that a couple of weeks after Charles died, Lori starts talking to him about not receiving any life insurance money. Colby says he spoke with his mom all regularly about finances stuff, about a month, every month or so, which is not uncommon for adults, children, and parents to talk about things like that, as far as money going back and forth. He did get money from Lori on a regular basis. The prosecution, who is Rob Wood at this time, asked Colby if he ever received money from Ty Lee, and he said that he did randomly through Venmo. He said that Lori would often send money to Ty Lee, and then Ty Lee would actually send it to Colby. They asked him specifically about the night of September 8th. Colby had asked Ty Lee for money, and Ty Lee responded that she was no longer in control of her money. Her mother was handling it. And that seemed to be a bone of contention there. He heard Ty Lee over the phone and Lori say they were at Yellowstone National Park. This was the last time that Ty Lee was seen. Colby says he was contacted by the Gilbert police on November 27th and asked where JJ and Tylee were. Colby said they were not with him. Colby had been concerned about his sister because he had not heard from her. His text messages for Tylee were in a different language than how Tylee would talk and type. He said he was getting messages back, but he didn't believe it was Tylee who was sending it to him. They just seemed odd. He said immediately after Charles died, Lori informed Colby that she was going to get married again. He said he tried to ask his mother what was going on after he got visited by the police, but he said she didn't give him really any information. Said he did not know where she was. He knew that she had moved from Phoenix. He didn't know a physical location where she would be because she had never told him where she moved to. She would not tell him. She just told me she was moving somewhere cold and it was dangerous for her. It was dangerous for her to tell anybody where she had gone. Okay. The thing here is, during this testimony, Lori's looking straight at him, straight at Colby. She's staring at him, but he refuses to make any eye contact with her at all. And if you hear that phone call, you'll see why. She writes in her notebook, she's staring at him, okay? But that was basically his testimony, that he didn't know where his brothers and sisters were. He had a decent relationship with Tylee, okay? He thought JJ was cool, all right? He did get money from his mother. Tylee reported to him that her money was now being controlled by her mother instead of her all of a sudden, okay? In cross-examination, Colby is asked if his relationship with his mother and Joe Ryan, his father, was good or bad. He said father. And Archibald asked if his stepfather abused him. And Rob Wood objects at this point. The prosecution jumps up. The objection by Rob Wood gets actually granted. He tells the jury to ignore the question about abuse in regards to Charles Vallow, who's the stepfather, by the way. Okay, Colby. Archibald then asks Colby if his mother protected him from Joe Ryan, and Colby said yes, but they don't talk about abuse. Colby says Charles Vallow had a good relationship with him. He was his stepfather for 13 years. Okay, he was very upset at his death and the idea that his mother would have had anything to do with it. Colby says that Tylee had health issues. She had pancreatitis and often had to go to the hospital. He also asked for details in regards to JJ's special needs and the type of care he needed, and asked if Lori cared for the needs of Colby and Tylee and JJ. And then Colby had to say, like, of course, for the most part, yes. But that's all before Chad Daybell. They talk about him personally and go after his depression and things like that and how he was raised. There's talk that Lori says that she was a goddess, and they get into that a little bit because he said he was never taught that he should join a church or anything. He says his mom never taught him about this new church called the Church of the Firstborn or any of this other stuff. That this is all not something that he and she had talked about. He did say that his relationship with Alex was minimal and described his uncle as being odd. He was crude and kind of funny and very odd. Of course, they get into the fact that Colby wrote a book in his appearance in the Netflix documentary. And Colby said that his mom had changed when she met Chad Daybell. He sticks by that, When Archibald asked him about this line, and Colby says he doesn't remember saying it, but it was before Chad Daybell. He does say it in the phone call again. Archibald says, "Who taught you God was good?" And Colby says, "The church and my mom." And that was it. Lori was crying or actually just wiping her eyes with the tissue. It's reported no one saw tears. I can't say because there's no cameras. Anyway, there's a redirect. And Wood asked if his mother ever asked him for anything since he moved out of her house. And he reports, nope, just to help them move. Um, Wood asked Colby if Lori controlled the bank account, and he said his bank account, and he said no. Colby says at one point Lori gave him Ty Lee's debit card so he could buy himself a birthday present, but it was Ty Lee's debit card, not Lori's. Colby says his mom never asked him to come to special church or meetings or anything or do castings. He said he learned from the news that his mom had moved in December 2019 because she didn't tell him. When Colby was asked about life insurance, he said he does recall having a conversation with his mother. And both at that point, Tylee and JJ were alive. Everybody, they were a family, but the only person listed as a beneficiary on Lori Vallow's life insurance was Colby. And that was it. They also admit the phone call from the jail. Colby is out of the room, but he remains under subpoena. He could be called back at any time, but he doesn't listen to that call. Okay. It's distressing. You guys, it's actually heartbreaking. The 10th witness, just in your spare time, listen to it. I really kind of feel for Colby. I don't know what's going on. But the next witness is very important. It's number 10. And his name is Mark Sari. And Mark Sari is a special agent with the Social Security Administration. And in his testimony, he confirms that both Ty Lee and JJ were receiving Social Security benefits. JJ got benefits from Charles, about $1,900 odd a month in 2019. And Ty Lee was also receiving Social Security benefits from Joe Ryan, $1,859 a month. Okay. In August of 2019, pertinent to what Colby had just testified, Tylee's bank account was switched from her from her JP Morgan account to one switched to BBVA on August 20th of 2019. They bring the change form in. It's a letter addressed to Lori on behalf of Tylee Ryan. What you should know section, as you requested on August 20th, was changed to Tylee's direct deposit. Tylee's Social Security payments ended in January of 2020, which means that money was all deposited to an account and used by Lori Vallow in between. JJ got benefits from Charles. Okay. They suspended the benefits on January 3rd due to children's whereabouts being unknown after the investigation had been opened, after everything happened. Okay. Just remember, this is before they found the bodies. JJ also got benefits. Those payments began September 18th. Now, what they want to say here is that didn't go on for very long, because JJ just got benefits, okay, several days prior to when they think that he died. Those payments began September 18th of 2019. Tylee is already presumed to be dead, based on her last visible sign of life, which was at Yellowstone National Park. But JJ would just be a few days later. They're anticipating he died just a few days after the 18th. Lori did receive mother, child, and care Social Security benefits. You must be married when your spouse dies to receive that benefit. Might be why they didn't want to be served divorce papers, and why Lori was hiding from the process server and not at the conference. That was the testimony. Okay. Lori received about $1,900 a month after Charles died in January, until January. Because the whereabouts of JJ was unknown, she could no longer receive mother-child care benefits because they did not know where the child was. Sari says that people must normally notify Social Security about any life changes, like missing children, marital status, deaths, or change of addresses. Lori didn't do any of these. Lori Vallow never reported her kids were missing. She remarried and she moved to Hawaii, and she never actually reported any of those events. Actually, the defense had absolutely no questions for this witness. What could you say? She was a thief. She stole from the Social Security. It looks very obvious that they were just in the way, and she got the money. That, to me, was quite damning. I don't know how you guys feel, but that was damning. Okay, the last one for the day is Detective Chuck. Oh, let me see. Considus. Okay, he's the 11th witness. Okay, and these are business records. They're going to show payment transactions and stuff like this. Basically, they're going to prove all of the where the money is going into, when it came in, when it came out. It's quite technical. And I'm actually going to give you the link to this Reddit here. Here's the link to the Vallow Reddit that I told you about. This is the poster I want you to follow for all of the days. You can go back. This is actually the last day of testimony that we are covering in this one for today. Lots of the bank account documents were discussed. They did call for a sidebar several times and gave the audience, gave everybody a chance to actually stretch and stuff like that, because they're going to go into stuff about charts, about timelines, showing spending habits of Alex Cox, showing money coming in and out at opportune times, showing the fact that Alex purchased 46 guns, opened up a credit union account, took out a loan, all kinds of things, moving money around and doing things under the assumption that he's doing things for Chad and Lori Daybell. Anyway, there's a video on this on Nate Eaton's channel. Also down link below, I have the East Idaho News link. I've got the main link to the Idaho court documents that you can find for all the prior filings prior to the actual charges, the things of that nature. The witness list is not available right now, but they did say that for privacy, they were going to keep it. 46 guns. Yep, let's do it. 46. Why? I don't know. Something big was going on. Absolutely. Liz, I do think for the next couple of seconds, let's talk about that. Let me pull him down and just talk to you guys. I feel so bad for Colby. Okay. And I did not put all of the detectives and the sergeants and everybody up, being officers, public, and all of this. They're out in the public a lot, and I don't find it necessary to put them up there like that. But these key personal people, I thought, seeing that would be good. There's the spirit science. I knew it. Jen, yep. Liz, Lori was so secretive. At what point did she decide the kids had to go? Alex also set up a password on one of Lori's devices. Too many kids. I remember that. Yes. Too many kids when they moved, right? And Lori laughed. She thought that was funny when he set up the Wi-Fi password. Yeah. Listen, it's quite telling that JJ was still alive until he got Social Security benefits, isn't it? Yes. And that Ty Lee died soon after having her bank account changed to where her Social Security benefits got deposited. It's all looking kind of like you can tie some things together. I don't want to get too presumptive about it, but it does look like the prosecution, as I said in the opening, is doing a good job of proving a conspiracy for murder here. I don't know. What do you think? Yeah, I'm telling you, just days. Yeah, because he was a handful. Take a look at it. Everyone involved in interfering with Lori and Chad being together with no one having anything to say about it. They're all gone. All of them. Oh, except for the law. And the fact that you can't do this kind of stuff, regardless of what life you want to live, is horrible. You know, Liz, it really does make Chad look bad, but it makes Lori look just as bad because she's willingly doing all this and Chad's doing it. It makes them, it's actually doing a good job. It's proving conspiracy. At least I think. What do you guys think? I think it's doing a very good job of showing the conspiracy to commit murder. And even if Lori is not the one who pulled a trigger or used a knife or a weapon or did anything, if she did not lay a hand or a finger, it definitely does seem sus, and she does seem complicit. She's in charge of all those finances, is she not? I think she will, Liz, because she's a mother and she should be guarded harsher. The children's lives were in her hand. She was responsible for them, regardless of her personal belief. Yeah. And here's the thing. If she didn't want to take care of JJ, there was Kay and the grandparents. They could have found a solution. Because when Lori went missing, did not Kay go and take care of JJ with Charles and help him when Lori went missing for those 48 days, as was testified on day 1 by Kay? There were better options. It makes it look like it was more about money and convenience and just wanting that belief to be this godly figure that could cast spells and get rid of demons and be a chosen one. Yeah. Exactly, Jean. That's a very valid point. Charles Manson was not convicted of murder. He was convicted of conspiracy to commit murder. That he had enticed, cajoled, and put out the plans helped them all get to the belief that people needed to die for a cause. Remember that. It's possible. And it seems like that's the case that's being built here. And I think very well done. Yeah, that trial was crazy, right, Liz? I agree. Well, I know I talked a lot, so you got any questions for me in regards to those witnesses? But like I said, that last link that I just posted for you, it's a good one. It's a very good one in regards to, that's going to point you right to the Reddit where they do a trial summary based on the Twitters I talked to you about. Nate Eaton and LBA. Okay, they both are doing videos and commentary. You know, there's quite a few people out there doing it. You could do follow-up on a more regular basis. I'm going to be doing it once a week, but as we're gathering information, I think, daily, if you want to get some hotspots and stuff, we will share the links for these phone calls. East Idaho News is putting out the audio of the testimony every day. It's a quite clear audio. I kind of like that one. And they also pull small ones for things like the Daybell phone call, like Colby's phone call with his mom. And they make them separate and easier to digest than being part of the evidence in an 4-hour-long video every day. So on that, I need to go get a drink of something. I hope to see you all tomorrow. We're going to do a catch-up tomorrow. We're going to do a catch-up on Stotch. I believe that's what's scheduled. And Friday, we've got the return of the Danny Masterson trial. And there's been some things going on. We're only in jury selection right now. But before we even got there, there was some shenanigans. And actually, there's some shenanigans going on right now. So that regardless of whether they seat the jury before Friday or not, we will have plenty to talk about on Friday anyway. So we'll start our Masterson reviews on Friday. Tomorrow will be Letitia Salsh again, another rather distasteful trial, but also running along smoothly and on track so far. But you can only take so much crime, Liz. Me too. They're all hitting it once. I usually only do this once a week, but the trials just all seem to hit at the same time. And that's making it a little difficult to manage right now, because normally I only do a one-a-week show on this. I know it's like crazy. They're all hitting it once. Thank God Boone and Clenny are not hitting at the same time, because that's another two that I'm following, and I'm really happy they didn't go off at the same time. Always grateful. I agree with you. The conspiracy evidence at this point is quite damning. I think, it's difficult to prove conspiracy. But I definitely think they're doing a pretty good job. I'd like to hear more about what you guys think about that, actually. Lisa says, I blame climate change. All the crazies getting tried at once. Yeah, all the crazies getting tried at once because of climate change. I might subscribe to that, because it is like crazy right now with all the trials going on. And there's even more than these two that we're covering. So I just can't. I do. It's nice to see you, Lisa. Well, if you're just coming in now, I hope you catch the rest of it later. For those of you that hung out for the whole 2 hours, bless you. This is a tough trial. Thank you so much for making it worth doing a review on it. We're up to date as of yesterday as far as the witnesses and the pertinent information. But like I said, if you go to that Reddit, you will find details on what was posted in regards to all of the witness testimony. And there's some bang up videos out there too that people are doing, if you want even greater. But that's the nuts and the bolts of it, and where we are right now with the case. I cannot wait to see who the defense is going to be bringing up. This is going to be like really, really something. How do you not prove conspiracy? Like, how do you defend conspiracy when you actually took people's Social Security benefits, deposited them to your own accounts, didn't report to anybody that the children were missing, or that you remarried, or you moved, or that you've actually said that people should actually die so that spirits should come out of them and they could be saved, and actually said to Colby that Tylee and JJ, they know what happened. They know why. They know the truth. No one else will believe it. Yeah, go listen to the tape. It's not good. It's not good. I am, with the investigation of Tammy's death, well, they all named in that. Tammy is a victim named in this trial. It is not the death of just JJ and Tylee. They are charged with Tammy's, okay? She's charged with conspiracy. And I do believe that Chad is charged with the death, is he not? And then they separated it. So I have to go look back at the charges, which are listed below, by the way. But I do believe that Chad Daybell will be on trial for all three. Yeah? And I don't think the death penalty has been lifted off that trial yet. Thank you, Crazy Cats. As I said, it's been a blast, guys. I'm going to actually put on the outro now, and I will see you all tomorrow. Have a good one.